podcast begin. All right. So what's up, dude?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I have to tell you, man. I saw. I think it was on your blog. You had this like Arduino controlled remote control car. That shit is awesome.
Yeah, that was for a project last semester. We basically took an RC car, took out all the guts, and was able to control it using an Android phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tilt it to the left or the right to make it drive. So that was really cool.
Don't you think that they should have like taught like microcontrollers at high school? Like, would that not have been like? It's got to the point where it's like you don't even need to know like how every like component works or any sort of like reactive like math. Like, it's almost easy enough that like if you think about it and like with a little bit of help you could make stuff like, instead of like, oh, how am I going to do this, like with all like discrete components, it would be a lot harder. But just by like doing the math, and it's like pretty simple programming, that like you could do a lot of stuff. And that's the most important part, is like that you can get it done, you know?
Yeah, I think high schools in general should emphasize more technology stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at Hicksville High School we had some courses but not a lot, and the really cool stuff like working with Arduinos, you don't really get any exposure to that.
No.
And it's unfortunate, but at least I got some. It was fun.
Yeah, and it like, like creativity, and you never know what kid is going to come up with an idea that no one else came up before, and just like given the capabilities, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, and that type of technology, it allows people to just do whatever their minds, whatever they can think of, because if you can think it, you can pretty much do it. And the software to write, to control it, is actually really, really easy. I looked at it and I understood it in a second, and I didn't know the language or pretty much anything about it, and it was really easy to use.
I looked at it and I understood a little bit of it, and like I don't know anything about like calculus and function. Like that stuff is naturally really hard for me. But I'm like, yo, if I like got a book, and like I could do that. And like I've just been following the Arduino thing because I just like, that's fascinating, man.
Definitely, it was awesome.
Shit.
That was probably one of the coolest things I've seen you do. Like out of everything, like talking about you from your blog and like that RC was pretty dope. I wouldn't mind like learning how to script, because like I can understand calculus. So, like math is one of my favorite things, but understanding scripting itself is probably where like I falter.
Yeah, the entire goal of the project was to have the Android phone on the car, and to have it take video, so you could see the video of what the car sees as you're controlling it from another phone. And really, I wanted to go into the library, control it via the internet, and drive this thing from like one level on another level. So that was sort of the idea for the project.
What sort of like receiver did you have on that? Like, how far away could you control it from? And like, what the phone, like, what did you have as like a receiver between like the phone and the car?
So the technology we used was Bluetooth. It advertised about 15 feet, but we were getting about 75, 80 feet in actually a pretty busy lab with hundreds of computers.
Damn. And that's not susceptible to like interference or anything like that? Or?
Not so much. It has it doesn't transmit much data, but it's a very reliable signal, and we could have actually done it via internet. So you could access it from anywhere in the world, and that would actually have been significantly easier than what we did, because we have to deal with the phones being able to establish a connection via Bluetooth, and that stuff was pretty hard. But via internet, it's one line of Java code and you're done.
Wow.
Oh shit! So you control it from like the third floor of a building, and then
and
it can be on the first floor, and you can just like have it drive around like a spy car, basically.
Yeah. Using that stuff was so easy. I had to write a Dropbox client for one of my programming courses, and we actually wrote it for Android, and to get the Android to talk to our server was 2 lines of code.
Wow.
And it's incredible, because we could have used that for our Android car. It was a semester early, I didn't know about it yet, but
wow,
we could have definitely done that.
That's cool. Some cool shit, man.
Yeah, it's definitely like out there.
So what are you actually doing at NASA?
So basically,
are you allowed to tell us, or is it like...
Yeah, I'm allowed to tell you. The project is going to be open sourced. I can't tell you about our the results of what we've done, because those haven't been published yet, but you can see those probably in 3 or 4 months. So basically, you guys have heard of the Amazon Cloud?
No. Enlighten us.
So basically, cloud computing is being able to use compute resources and storage resources and access them purely via software. So you can spin up 10 servers if you have a web page and you're going to get a lot of traffic, but you don't own them. You just type in the command and it sort of does it all behind the scenes. And one thing that they offer that's really, really efficient is called the simple storage service. And if you put data on it, it's reliable with 11 nines, meaning 99.9999.
Wow.
You get the point.
That's
if you
really
have
accurate.
10 million files over 10,000 years, you'll lose maybe 1 if you're really unlucky. And it's a really great way to back up data. So basically, my group which was the data services group at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We're basically exploring whether or not we can build a client that allows people to back up data to the cloud very, very efficiently. So we're doing all these operations in parallel. And, we're benchmarking that performance to see if NASA can realistically use this, if we can make it secure, etc. So that was sort of my project for the summer.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Wow. Do you think that, like, we're going to move past the need for, like, physical media and everything is just going to be, like, cloud?
Well, I mean, the cloud is still physical media. You just don't necessarily own it or have direct access to it. So on some level, we're always going to rely on that. But, I mean, you see there's the Apple Cloud Services, there's Microsoft Azure, which it only used to support one programming language, which was, Microsoft.NET, but now it supports pretty much all of them. And you see all these cloud vendors starting to offer more services. And even before this, you've seen remote backup services where, you pay per gigabyte. And it's really becoming more prevalent because it's so easy to use. If I want to back up my computer, I'd need 3 hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to back up my stuff now, I click, and it's essentially infinitely secure and infinitely accessible.
Alright, but isn't, like, the only problem to this is, like, what if, someone gets access to this one button we click, and then they have all our files on the media, and they get out? Isn't that, like, the only downside to all this?
Yeah, it's a downside, but, there's a downside with everything. And Amazon, they actually do a lot of stuff to make sure that your files are secure. The stuff that they'll tell you about is basically you have an account, and they take some information and they perform a hash function on it. So that's only one way. So if you have a hash value, you can't go back to what the original password or key was.
Okay.
And you use those as secure credentials. And it's really hard to spoof that. And they have a lot more security measures that they don't tell us about. But basically what I can tell you is that their cloud service is secure enough that they have a specialized region called GovCloud, which is ITAR compliant. And that basically means the regulations that apply to NASA, like government arms, anything that's protected by the government, the service that Amazon provides is secure enough for that.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
So it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So a server, like, is just a computer that's kind of hooked up to, like, the internet, kind of? Or what's the, like,
basically,
exact...
So when you think of the internet, basically, if you type in www.google.com into your browser, your computer figures out, okay, that name, what IP address does that correspond to? Okay, that IP address, I'm going to talk to that computer, and I'm going to ask it for a file, and it's going to give me that file back. So when you think of a server, it's a computer, just like your laptop, and it's connected to the internet, whereas the internet is really just a bunch of computers that know about other computers. So a server is just basically a file system that you're able to access remotely.
And is there, like if everything's on the cloud, is there, like, redundancy there? Like, if something happens, like, because the server's a physical, like, computer, right?
Yeah.
Something happens to it, is the data lost, or is it, like...
So the way that Amazon solves this problem is once you upload your data to the S3 service, they'll spin up about 3 machines on one data center, and a data center is just basically a facility located in one geographic region. So they'll spin up 3 machines, store your data on those 3 machines, but that's not enough. They spin up 3 machines on another data center and save it on that. And they'll spin up 3 machines on another data center and save it in those machines. So you just have so much redundancy, it's actually able to tolerate 2 concurrent losses, complete losses of data centers, and your data is still there and still accessible. It's awesome.
That sounds pretty
Cool.
amazing.
That's pretty cool.
That sounds
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Damn.
Wow, man.
That's intense stuff.
Some cool shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, computers are, like, so, like, everywhere, but, like, I don't understand enough about them that I would like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't fundamentally understand a lot of the things behind them, so that, like, if something does go wrong, I don't know, like, how to fix it. Like, there's a difference between, like, understanding, like, memorizing a certain, like, fact or something like that, and then understanding, like, a fundamental idea. Because then you can change it and adapt it, and you're like, oh, I understand why this isn't working, let me do it here. But if you only have, like, one kind of fix or one kind of answer, if that's not, like, if you don't understand the idea behind it and something changes, all of a sudden you don't know what to do.
Yeah, and it's a really big issue because people use this technology and rely on this technology for a whole bunch of things, and
I have no idea
you don't really
how to use
understand
it.
it. I mean, even, I'm a computer science major, but I don't know, how the hardware works. I've taken 2 hardware courses, and I understand it on a low level.
Well, it has to do with, like, like logic gates and shit
Yeah.
like that, and like not and like you can do it. They used to be able to do it with, before they invented integrated circuits. You could actually do it with just like regular like semiconductors, like
Mhm.
transistors and shit like that. You can
Yeah.
form a NOT gate and but. As I understand, like here, and then like it just goes like I don't understand how that turns into
Yeah.
Minesweeper. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a
You know,
that's
it's
a
just
complicated
it's so
thing.
complicated, and I think people are afraid to learn about it because it's so complicated. But if you know if we're taught about computers and like the basics of how they work, and even not related to that, if we're taught how to think logically, like if we were given a logic course in elementary, middle, or high school, computers wouldn't seem that scary.
Yeah. This
'Cause
goes back to Arduino class in 11th
Yeah.
grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Arduino 101. That's
Yeah.
what it should have been.
I mean, a computer is basically, it's a big circuit, and circuits are basically, can you follow the electricity, and you can abstract that away with just logic gates, and everybody intuitively understands logic gates. If I say A and B, well, they both have to be true. If it's A or B, one or the other, we intuitively understand it, and computers aren't much different than that.
Mhm.
It gets so complicated that you can have all this really cool software like Minesweeper or video games or Halo or Microsoft Office, which is 30 million lines of code, and it's scary to think about it that way, but it's just something that's very, very simple.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's built upon like it's almost like when you think of one person understanding all of it, it's ridiculous because it's like hundreds of people's contributions. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it goes back to like reel to reel kind of like basics. Goes back to like the clocks from the 1800s
Yeah.
that were technically computers.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Those early like mechanical computers.
I mean, if you want to go back to the first computer, Hello Abacus.
yeah, pretty much.
It may have been manually operated, but when you think of a computer, it performs some computation.
Is
It's not
that
a
more of
digital
a
computer.
calculator though?
I mean, a calculator is a computer.
But a computer you can like program or something like that. There's like a difference
Yeah,
between the two.
I mean, there are general purpose
Semantics.
computers, integrated computers, are all different things. But in the end, if you want to think about a computer performs some form of calculation. That's generally how we think of it.
Mhm.
Everything in your operating system, it's a calculation. We use digital computers, but there have been analog computers,
Mhm.
mechanical computers.
Yeah, the first time I ever actually like saw how an abacus works, I was like overwhelmed by like cuz you think about math, once you get past like, like 2 or 3 digits, like you look at the abacus and you're like this could really like up the level of like I don't know, trade or whatever they used it
Yeah.
for. It's pretty amazing. I was like they figured it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I was in a course. It was basically the introduction for electrical and computer engineering at my school, and for the first 2 or 3 weeks, we were talking about numbers.
Mhm.
Why is base 10 useful? So we went back and we looked at Roman numerals. What can you do with Roman numerals? You can add them. Okay. How do I add them? Convert to base 10. Add it. Unconvert to base 10. Back to Roman numerals, and then figure out what
Yeah.
that's supposed to be. And you look at these old number systems. You can't do anything with them.
No.
The invention of the decimal system, the invention of the idea of zero, really just paved the way for almost all the technological advances, because without math, you can't really have any of that.
That is amazing because when you think about like Roman numerals and how you have to like most people they would convert like that's 42 and they convert it like it's almost like why are we even like it's a good thing we don't use it but
Definitely.
yeah.
But it's good to know where we came from.
I took a like an electronics course at school and
Mhm.
it was like they were kind of like, well, in the real world, you're pretty much going to figure out which of these boards is bad and pull it out and replace it.
Yeah.
There was no like what I wanted was I wanted to start at like the beginning and like just keep going, but they were like, listen, like we could teach you this, but you're not going to troubleshoot on a component level.
Mhm.
You're not going to understand what exactly went wrong. You're just going to figure out, with your, testing probes, which one of these boards is bad, pull it out, put
Yeah.
the new one in, and that's it. And it's just like, it's not what I wanted.
Yeah, it really goes back to that like the Arduino class idea. We learn fundamentals of math, of English, of we have to take a different language, of social studies, history, all different cultures. We don't get that with like our own history and like the development of the technology that we use all the time. And I find it cool. I guess not everybody likes everything,
Mhm.
but it's just it would be cool if there was some like survey course, that you could take at high school maybe every other day for a semester or something. That if you want to be interested in it,
Yeah.
then go for it. It could be a prereq for something else. And you see that actually a lot in magnet schools. A lot of my friends, they went to magnet schools, and they had 4 years of programming going into school, and I'm like, oh,
What is a
I have
magnet
2.
school?
I don't know like the
Is it like
official
a private
definition,
school
but
or something
basically
like that?
they're like these hyper performing schools that usually specialize in math and science. So like my friends took Calc 3 in 10th grade,
Wow.
Holy shit.
and they had 4 years of programming experience. They're at the level of programming they were in senior year, as I was, junior year, last year at school, because they just have so much experience. And I got to take Intro to Java, where they're doing data structures, and it's really cool. I wish we could have had that.
Wow.
Talking about Java though, like what exactly is the Java system? Like how does that all work? I know like don't we use that in our computers today? Like isn't that like the program that like that's used on a daily basis? Now how do you go about like using Java?
So I'll explain a little bit about Java and why I think it's awesome. It's my favorite language. I'm prejudiced because it was the first, when I say real language I learned, really it's like the first language that I was taught and used a lot. So basically Java code is portable. I could write a Java program and I could use it on my computer or your computer on a different operating system, and it'll still work. The reason it works is that computer code, like high level code, gets converted into machine code, just ones and zeros, or maybe it's shown to you in hexadecimal, but it's really just ones and zeros. And the computer can understand that. There are very specific instructions. And converting from Java code or whatever code to machine code is processor dependent. If I do it on my machine and you do it on your machine, there's completely different codes. We have, different processors, they're running different architectures, etc. And Java wanted to get rid of that, so there's something called the Java bytecode. And it's basically, it's sort of like assembly language, and where it tells the processor exactly what to do. Go to this memory address, jump down, jump back, basically seek, have your hard drive seek, etc. So there's this thing called the Java bytecode, and you have something called the Java virtual machine, which will take that Java bytecode and convert it to machine code. So as long as you have the JVM, the Java virtual machine, you can run your code anywhere.
And what is machine code?
Machine code, basically, it's what your processor understands. It's like a basic thing that you do in a programming language is you have a loop. Like, keep doing this until I'm done. Like, keep doing this until this value of this variable is less than 10 or something. So you can, write that in Java code, and it's 3 lines, nice and easy. But that in, assembly language or machine code could be 20, 30, 40 lines long, because it's literally saying, take this value, store it in this specific register. Register is where you can store value in assembly. Store it in this register. Change its value by this much. Do this check. If this check succeeds, go back to this line, etc. So it's it's what you usually call spaghetti code, where you say, where line 1 executes, then 2, then 3, but line 4 says, if this, go to this line, if this, go to this line. And you call it spaghetti code because it's just like this whole big jumbling of things that's hard to understand. And that's sort of what machine code and assembly code are. But you never want to write software like that, because people don't really think like that. So getting back to your question, how do you go about writing a Java program? Assuming you know Java, you go through it algorithmically and say, what do I want to do? And then you basically go through the steps, writing the software, the language, and then, you're constantly testing it. But once, you're ready to deploy it, you can provide Java bytecode, and any person's computer who has the Java virtual machine can run it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, Windows, Mac, Linux, any type of Linux, any operating system that has it, your toasters sometimes run on Java. You could give that program to it and it'll run it. And that's one of the great things about it, because it's so portable.
That's cool. Now, I remember like you have your blog, David Widen blog, and I don't remember the whole website thing, but I do believe you did say didn't you write an app using, I believe, was it Java code or what?
Yeah.
What app exactly was it? Cause I think it was a while ago that you did that you wrote that. What was that app about?
Okay, so I've written 3 apps, I believe. Okay, so I've written more apps, but 3 real apps. I haven't released them on the App Store because, 1, they weren't ready. 2, they're mostly for a class.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but the first app was a project for a course that I took in Android programming. And basically, it was an app that most college students would really want and need. Basically, it told you how to clean stuff up. Ready? Here's an example. You're drinking milk on your really nice rug, and you're a klutz. Like, we all are. I'm a klutz. I drop things all the time. And you spill your milk all over the carpet. How do you clean it up? And you go to the app and you say, I dropped milk on the carpet, and it gives you 3 hints about how to clean it up. One is sort of the poor college students thing, which is pretty much always, water and paper towels because water's really good.
Yeah.
But we also had instructions
Universal
for
solvent.
yeah, we had instructions for people with actually cleaning supplies, and we had this for a whole bunch of stuff. Pretty much anything you could spill on anything, we sort of had this description of how you clean it. So that was really useful. It was for our final project. It was basically just like a database that you could view, and we also had some internet capabilities where you could provide your own hints about it, saying this is really good, this is bad. You could upvote it or downvote it. So that was cool. That was
That's pretty cool.
Does the graphing calculator use Java or what?
I'm not exactly sure.
Do you remember that though? There was like a way to like write like
Yeah.
basic programs in
I
graphing
don't
calculator.
think it uses it. I think it uses its own, at least to write your own software, it
Yeah.
probably uses its own proprietary language, but it's probably similar to BASIC or something.
Yeah. The weird thing is how like there's like so many different programming languages, but like it makes it almost more complicated because it's like what, if they standardized it, it would there'd be more compatibility
Yeah.
and
I mean, the problem with that is
money.
everybody likes their own thing.
Yeah.
I love Java. One of my friends loves Python, C#.
Is there
C++,
like a
you know.
best code? I guess is there like really like that universal like everybody like English is the universal language.
Mhm.
What would be a programming language that basically every basic computer science student should know?
The basic programming language that every computer science student should know is logic, because at its core, programming is just logic. You need to take a problem, break it off into a bunch of smaller problems, solve those smaller problems, and then you can break it down literally step by step. What do I need to do? And that's basically is what you call pseudocode. So if you can get used to pseudocoding, and it's really difficult. The first year I learned how to program, it was hard. It's really hard to. I've actually used this example for the students that I TA in Java programming. The second program I ever had to write at college was basically a register, like a cash register.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying with a $20 bill. My purchase is $15.61. What change do I get back? And well, people can do that intuitively. Oh, how much money is it? Figure it out.
Yeah.
Like that's easy.
$4.49 or whatever.
How do you teach a computer to do it?
30.
So, I mean, I knew how to do it, but I didn't know how to code it. So I took out some change, and I figured it out. How do I figure out how many dollars or fives or tens or 20s do I need? What about the change? And if you can sort of go through that, you can code in any language. I started off with BASIC, then I went to C++. I have several years of Java experience. That's what I'm most comfortable in. But I could look at at any other code in any other language and sort of figure out what's going on just by looking at it, because the principles are just logic.
Yeah.
And
That's
I've been taught logic.
That's crazy. It's funny though, because I think like every time we talk about code, I just see like in my mind 1 0 0 1 like
The Matrix.
Yeah, Matrix is like all right, and like it's interesting that you can read like all that stuff. Like I don't remember, I was reading on a website and it was talking about like how somebody broke a code, being able to find the hacker. Like he went through his whole code system and basically was like, all right, I backtracked the whole code. I even like I used like my own username and I figured it out that I found the guy that hacked me that tried to throw a virus into my computer by using the same code he did and then to rewrite everything over again. And this guy he was like, I'm just a basic programmer. Like I didn't do anything high level. All I did was just backtrack him all the way. It's like it was kind of crazy how like I was like, what are you reading? Like you're just reading RGB. Some greater than sign, user 389. Like I was like, and then he's circling. And I'm like, how the hell does that mean? Like,
I mean, it's all just logic.
Like, yeah, I think after this, I'm probably gonna get a book called Programming 101. Like, I just because like I love using computer. Computer's like the only thing that like I appreciate. Now the technology now. And like to understand like why my computer's not the video's taking too slow. I wouldn't mind hacking into my own computer to fix it.
Yeah, although I wouldn't recommend hacking into your own computer to fix it.
But
I wouldn't do that.
To understand
Changing the registry.
Yeah. I just want to understand like the whole programming system. You know what I mean? Like
it's really great to just understand it, because if your computer starts going slow, you can open up Activity Monitor in Mac or the Task Manager in Windows, and you can look at it and say, oh.
It's a nice little graph.
This is my page file. It is 0. That's why my computer is crashing, And you can just, like, get those little hints, like...
How the hell do viruses work, anyway? Like, I don't understand how,
So, I don't exactly know how they work on an individual basis, but in general, there's some backdoor. Whether or not it's intentional or unintentional, Microsoft Windows is,
And by backdoor, you mean?
by backdoor I mean a way to access something that you shouldn't have access to, whether it's intentionally designed or unintentionally forgotten or left open because there just wasn't enough time to fix it. And there are hundreds of thousands of these. You look at Microsoft Office has 30 million lines of code. It took 150 people a year and a half to do that. So you're talking about software that has more than 100 years, of manpower put into it. There are going to be bugs.
Yeah.
Some distributions of Linux have 200 million lines of code. There are going to be vulnerabilities, and basically people go and find them. There's a competition called what's it called? Mr. Citron let me know about it. Basically, I forgot the name of it, but it's this competition where people try and hack into browsers and get to use a browser to gain complete control of a computer. It's called Pwn to Own. Sorry, PWN to OWN. And
Yeah.
how fast do you think people were able to, for example, use Safari? How many seconds do you think it took them to use Safari to gain complete access to somebody's computer?
Well, aren't Macs supposed to be like more secure, or is the idea behind?
More secure?
Yeah.
How long do you think? What's your guess?
Somebody who knows what they're doing? I don't know.
10 seconds.
10
5
seconds?
minutes.
Yeah.
Too slow.
Too slow.
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Damn,
Wow.
Because there are vulnerabilities and people find them, and it's really easy to write a program to just exploit that vulnerability.
Wow.
Yeah. I did some research last semester on computer security. It wasn't super low level, it was high level, saying we have, at schools you have like a protected internet and you have the unprotected internet for like guests or whatever.
Mhm.
And we're thinking, there are all these protections, on the packet level, on the routing level, on the internet level, Ethernet level. What's the weakest link? And it's us. It's the people that are using the system. So we basically went about trying to find vulnerabilities in this enterprise software with basically as a bunch of students with no budget and in a room, and we were able to do it.
I have unsecure Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
I have that shit's not password protected, just for convenience. 'Cause,
Yeah.
That makes it simple though. I hate when people put passwords. It's like I can't go to their house. And
I
use
know.
It, you know?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like-
even having the password set up, you can misconfigure your server, your wireless network, and you can steal people's information really easily. I wrote a fake Facebook page that takes your information and sends it to a server, and you would never know. It's such a
Devious.
good copy that if you load this web page, we tried it on like Safari, it actually auto fills in from your cookie file your username and password, and it just takes it, and you would never know.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that now. Like, if you ever try to like sign up for some things on computers, it's like, all right, you just put like the first two words. Like I put my username's Darkstar, so I just put DA and it's like autofill, and it's like where you live. I'm like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
know.
What's creepy is when you see the ads on the side of web pages are like your interests.
Mhm.
You're like,
Yeah.
how do you know I'm into cameras? How do you know I want to go to like
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu class near you? Like,
I mean, that's what's making a lot of these internet companies profitable. The reason Facebook is profitable is it has petabytes of data. They have so much data they can't even do stuff with it yet because they don't have enough computer infrastructure to deal with it. And they just have this data and people want it.
yeah.
Think of how many times you've been signed into Gmail and you've done a search. Google knows that.
Yeah.
If you're logged into Facebook and then you go to another web page, don't quote me on this, but I remember reading an article that says that the way that their cookies are set up, Facebook knows which pages you went to because they're trying to optimize your ad experience.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
Let's
they
make it
know
better for
exactly what
you.
you do.
It's like, no, you're selling this to some guy over there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and you are able to turn off some of those features. Like you can turn off that feature in Google for
Yeah.
anonymous browsing. But how many people know about that, and then how many people that know about it know how to do it?
Yeah, and they're like legally obligated to inform you. They're like,
Mhm.
oh, we're just letting you know we're changing our privacy settings.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah, and like they make it seem like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah,
all
And I mean,
right.
and the thing is, you sign, you click accept on all of these,
I agree.
contracts,
Yeah.
and people don't read it. So again, people, we're the weak point. It's really important that we understand, what we're signing up for, because they tell us exactly what they're doing,
Yeah.
and they give us the means to do
Well,
what we want to do with it, and
the
take
language
advantage
in
of
which
it.
like contracts and laws and stuff is written is not really like a common like colloquial language,
Mhm.
which is kind of like unethical when you think about it. It's like, oh, like if you can speak Gaelic, you can like it's like, oh, I don't like people just it's not like they're when you read the contract, even if it is in English, they're not like telling you we as the company Google are allowed. They're saying the plaintiff, your liability. Like they try to make it as like it's just part of the game.
I mean, I took a law class specifically on law and how it relates to the internet, and I mean they're using the English language. We should know
Technically.
it. I mean, they're technically using it, and the other thing is they need to be very, very precise in what they say. So that's why the language gets 15th grade or whatever Microsoft Word wants to say it is. But it's still whatever the language is. It is our obligation to understand it.
But on like a level where you're looking at like, shouldn't the language that the laws are written in be the language that the people speak? Like most of the people understand. Like that doesn't.
I mean, it would be very nice like if it was written in vernacular,
like a shady kind of way that they're just
The thing is, I know that our law teacher said that there's some legislation to get the contracts that you have to sign to be shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly what domain this was for, whether it's on the ISP level, if you're signing a contract with Google or whatever to use their service, but it's to try to make it to be one page. But if you try to write the stuff in the vernacular and how people actually talk, these things are going to be 50, 60, 70 pages long, and no one's going to read them anyway.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
But like ethically, it seems like for the laws, if they're for the people, they should be written like even like legal constitution kind of like shouldn't that really be written in the language that the majority of people understand?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like.
It's really nice to say shouldn't most people understand it, and I think that most people should understand it, but I mean that's how things have been done, and I think that people in general should. I mean, it's hard. The first time I started reading that stuff, it was really hard. I've taken an ethics class, that law class, and you just sort of get used to it.
Like whenever, like I got a traffic ticket once, and it was like a legal deposition, and like all the things that I was like I was just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. The nice thing is that most of the things that you're signing away, if there's anything bad in them, you are protected by the law, because if they try to do anything unethical, basically there are a lot of laws that will actually protect you, which is nice. And if there's anything where you really need help understanding, people generally go to lawyers. You're going to buy a house, so you need a mortgage. You're getting a lawyer to help you fill out that paperwork.
For sure.
So I mean, I really wish that it was in a language that was a lot easier to understand. I mean, I had to write papers for that law class, and it's really hard, reading these arguments from the judges, because that's how they write, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Just read more.
Pretty much.
Or just press I agree most of the time.
Or press I agree, because the worst case, they have your email address or whatever.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, it's like, what are they going to do? Like,
especially because you probably really want to use what they're offering.
Yeah.
Like Gmail, great. I play video games. I really want to play the video game. I'm never going to hit decline.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I never read those like license agreements or anything like that.
Apple's like...
Sometimes it's like you agree using this only for one computer or X amount of computers, or that anything is like property of sometimes I skim it, but most of the time it's just there's too many of them. And,
One thing that people should use is people should read is like the basic end user rights agreement. And like the EULA, the end user license agreement, just like the really basic general one. You see that on a lot of software that you download, especially if it's from like download.com or CNET, because a lot of them have that basic stuff. So like it's nice reading just like basic licenses, especially for me. It's important if I want to use somebody's software, I need to read their license. And a lot of them say, you know what, go for it, do whatever you want, package it off, sell it, but put this license in there and say that I wrote it.
And it has to do. It's like becomes more of an issue when you're making money off of something, of somebody else's intellectual property, which is like when you think about it, needs to be protected. And like if it takes like at the same time you look at like, oh, why is Microsoft Office so expensive? Because it's 300 million lines of code. That took people years, and they need to be paid. And like it's just because like it's something that's digital and you can copy it infinitely does not mean that like intellectually that property is yours, which is something that with torrents no one respects anymore. And I see both sides, because on one hand it's one of like the principles of Dharma to share your food, drink, knowledge with the rest of mankind. But at the same time it's like 300 million lines of code took a bunch of people years.
If you create something, especially in America, this is the country with the American dream. You can rise up from nothing and achieve great things. If you're lucky, if you have the skills to do it. Persistence and all that stuff. And you see a lot of laws are just written around that. we have patent laws, copyright laws. I mean, copyright law used to be for copyright you got 14 years.
Yeah.
Then it was 28, and now it's
Freaking Walt
death
Disney.
plus 50.
Mickey
yeah.
Mouse was about to enter public domain, and they lobbied the government to like extend it some ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
You look at people who are dead, like a bunch of like the Beatles are dead, and it's like, who owns this music now? Like
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Yeah, and on one hand, like if you look at Disney, on one hand, it would be really great if that stuff goes to the public because it has to.
It will eventually.
It has to eventually. There's issues where it's constantly being extended, and the Constitution says you can't constantly extend it. But lawyers know a lot more than any of us. They understand the law. So on one hand, I personally think that everything has to go to the public domain, and I think it's a little excessive. Like death plus 50 or 70, or like for corporations, it seemed like they have it for so long.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Disney is sort of based on Mickey Mouse. And
yes, but Mickey Mouse was like drawn in the 20s.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
how
that-
long are we Walt Disney is dead.
Yes.
Walt Disney he's dead. That was his idea.
Mhm.
He's dead. It should be everybody's
Everybody's
Yeah.
yeah.
You
When
know?
I say that, I think of all of the however many tens of thousands of people that are employed, simply because they still own that right. And it's difficult to sort of balance that with, well, should everybody have access to it for free, or like, how much is it helping people? You know what I mean?
But it's the thing. You could argue that like, isn't the idea behind like a patent is to encourage people to bring their like ideas forward,
Mhm.
as opposed to like fearing people would steal them and then keeping them.
Yeah.
Like when you bring it forward, people can use it. Like part of like the agreement of the patent is that like I don't know if it's the government, whoever gets to use it, like
Mhm.
as long as they give you credit and pay you or do whatever. Like that's great and all. Like Walt Disney did that. That was his work. But
Yeah.
like he's dead. So it's the argument that like they still own that, like
Mhm.
they didn't do that though.
Yeah.
That wasn't them.
Yeah.
Whoever owns that wasn't them. Like if this is a song John Lennon wrote, like I'm pretty sure John Lennon would want it to be a public domain. Like this
Yeah.
is almost directly against his wishes. Universal Music Group or whatever,
Yeah.
or whatever like conglomerate that owns like so much of the
Mhm.
property.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you look at the different protections on intellectual property, there are copyrights, there are patents, and there's trade secrets.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, these are my personal viewpoints. I think that some trade secret protection maybe should go to copyrights, like a very select few.
So they'd be disclosed, kind of.
So like they sort of like be disclosed, but you're still not allowed to use them. So like the classic trade secret is Coca-Cola's formula.
I was about to
No one
say
will
that.
ever know what
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
As long as Coca-Cola does a good job, no one will ever find out.
Yeah, apparently there's only like 2 or 3 people who know what it is.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
kill the guy, and then they tell another person.
Yeah, and I do think that some businesses are based off of one so small idea like that I don't know if it's worth it to move that to the public domain. But again, that's just
Well,
it's so subjective.
There is some sort of like open cola, which is like a open source recipe for Coke, kind of.
Yeah.
But I've never made it or anything, but I'm sure it doesn't taste the same. It has to do with like their advertising.
Mhm.
And the guy who invented Coca-Cola, like he had 3 companies. He took like one of them public. It's like Coca-Cola bottling company,
Mhm.
Coca-Cola like soft drink company. He took one public. He kept one private. Like he was a smart dude.
Mhm.
He's dead now, but
Yeah.
His secret should be kept a secret
Yeah.
though. Like that's the Coke Coke
Yeah.
recipe should
Yeah.
be kept Coke recipe.
Yeah, because
No
if
one
that
needs to know.
recipe
Yeah.
gets out,
Yeah.
goodbye Coca-Cola.
Yeah, no.
Someone's gonna make it for half the price.
yeah.
Like Mickey Mouse, who cares? He's a mouse.
But at the same time, is it like sometimes it's good for the consumer, for the people. Like
Mhm.
apparently Xerox or whoever invented the desktop, like there was some sort of crazy like Apple Windows lawsuit saying
Mhm.
the desktop, like the idea of like not having to go to MS DOS and like do any sort of like C prompts or whatever. Like they when that first came out, there was a famous lawsuit where the court decided for the good of the people
Mm-hmm.
that it should be that you can't have this patent, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that we could have progress in the computer
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think Xerox invented the desktop. The Wright brothers?
Yeah, didn't they have like they created the first computer, but then they got screwed over because Apple did it too, and then like they both couldn't.
No, that was they made the airplane.
No, my bad. Then who? Yeah, then I was
Steve
not-
Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
Was that the two?
Those are the guys who started Apple.
Yeah.
But they weren't the first guys to personal computers. They were
Yeah.
like kits you could buy in the mail,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
build your own Altar 64 computer. So
Yeah.
But you know what it is Steve Jobs gives a lot of credit to like the different type fonts that they had because
Mhm.
when he was in college, he was like a liberal arts major and he just studied whatever. He like took a calligraphy class and he's like
Mhm.
because of that, Apple had multiple fonts.
Yeah.
Microsoft or whatever at the time did not only had one font.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and you see a lot of even modern day things that I personally don't think should be patented, but are protected. Like you can patent gestures for your computers. Like if there's this really cool new gesture on your touchpad that you want, that like you develop, you can patent that.
like a gesture, you mean
It's
by
like
Emoticon or
like as an example, let's say I have this new gesture where I take 3 fingers and I bring them together, and that shuts off my computer. I could theoretically try to patent that.
doesn't I don't know if Apple owns that like pinch and zoom kind of thing, but
Yeah,
like
I tend to
the
not
end-
think so, but
yeah.
that's a weird thing.
we
like
also
that you could own.
we don't want to sift through thousands of patents, that they own, and
Yeah.
people do that, but
Well, some of the patents are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you're patenting like you're not even building a product. It's like you're patenting an idea that you kind of just can't like. It's
because you can patent an idea that you will never implement, so
Or-
other
yeah,
people can't use it
or have
for
to pay
20
you,
years
yeah.
and have to pay you fees.
Yeah, you could patent a process,
Mhm.
a specific way of doing things, but
Yeah.
it's a weird thing, I think that they go a little overboard sometimes with these.
Yeah.
these,
I mean, we have all this, like American law, it's been there for a very long time, hundreds of years. And then you look at computers and, you look at the internet and you look at BitTorrent. Those haven't been there for that long. And then you look at judges, and judges aren't our age. Judges are older, so they can sort of have an understanding of how all the stuff works, but they don't know all of the societal implications. They're not going to know, how this stuff works in the background. So we're just going to... It's hard to make laws and write laws just based on the fact that you aren't as familiar as the people who are using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a weird kind of disconnect between like the lawmakers of the like and like the laws that like the citizens that the laws have to actually do
Yeah.
with. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
a weird thing.
And that's always present.
Yeah.
It's hard to get around that, because if you want to be a judge or you want to be a senator, you can't just be 20 and say I'm going to be a senator. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and that's the idea is that you'd have some sort of wisdom with age
Exactly.
and that you could like do the right thing, but at
Yeah.
the same time it's like, oh, you kids, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
With your goddamn torrents, shut down Pirate Bay, seize mega upload.
Because it's
like,
obviously it's terrible.
What? The idea that like it's somehow ruining like the movie industry or something like that, or the music industry, it's like, well, like should they really have been that powerful to begin with? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like I get it, like you own a song, but at the same time, like you're going crazy with the like this guy's dead, but it's still like
Yeah.
owned by.
I personally do not agree with how, like record companies and these big organizations are able to basically pressure people who they found to, be breaking small laws which probably aren't affecting them that much, and able to just sue them for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars when there isn't even a realistic way for them to pay it,
Mhm.
and they're just gonna eventually like. If they're convicted, they're not going to pay it anyway, and they're wasting our time, they're wasting their lawyers' money when everybody could be doing something more productive.
And like the number that they come in as like damages and like the loss that they've incurred is like this seems a little inflated to me. Like
Yeah.
this person downloaded a bunch of songs. Like never mind that you're gonna like pursue them on a personal level.
Mhm.
You the giant company is gonna like subpoena the teenage girl who had like LimeWire,
Mm-hmm.
but like you're suing her for like $500,000. Like did she really cost you that much money?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the famous case with that is the Thomas Rassett case, where this woman was sued for about $2 million for downloading 24 songs.
that's ridiculous.
What?
And I think, okay, how much damage can downloading 24 songs do? And I guess you technically can't really calculate it, because there's just this gigantic graph of people that could have downloaded it. And I guess it is an issue because a lot of people will download songs illegally. I definitely I disagree with downloading songs illegally. If there's an artist that I really like, I'll buy their stuff, and I'll make it a point to buy their stuff because I want to support them.
That's good.
Yeah.
And even though I agree with this and disagree with what these people are doing in these cases, it's just I don't think this big company should be
Mhm.
having their 10 lawyers come and just giving these people almost no chance of winning and just forcing them to settle out of court.
What do you make of that SOPA and PIPA and all that like attempt at like internet That's some scary shit. Apparently, China or so there's a bunch of countries that have like a censored internet, like because I think like it was set up like individual universities at first in America, but like by the time it made it to certain countries, like like they were already familiar with the technology, so when they set it up, they like put it through I'm not even sure like what I'm talking about 100%, but they set it up like so that there was no information on like I think in China Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, you can't
cannot,
find it. You can't search it. The younger generations don't even know what happened.
That is the craziest shit ever. Like when you look at like North Korea and like the information they have is just the propaganda from the TV, the propaganda from the newspaper, and that's you know what I mean. So like they really have no idea what's happening. You know, like they have it's a crazy thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. Which is weird because China has like the loosest copyright laws ever. They don't care.
Yeah.
But which is good because I got I bought a set of lights, right? It's like $2,300 for like Ari, which is like some sort of I don't know, it might be a European company, and it's a better quality, but like you could buy the same exact set, Chinese copies, $700. It's like that's like a third of the price.
Yeah.
They're still made of like aluminum, you know what I mean? It's like there's a certain like cost of like materials and labor and manufacturing that like you couldn't sell for lower. Where is the rest of this money going to like research 3 times the amount of price to what to market it? Like it's a little weird.
Yeah, I used to have those same viewpoints specifically about like for example medical research, pharmaceutical research in America, and then I realized we're one of the few companies that makes really high quality, really effective drugs. And the amount of money it takes to do the R&D on that stuff is just it's incredible, and you don't even know if it's gonna work. Do I think that you need that much R&D for a set of lights? Probably not. I mean, there are obviously some.
Well, they've been making the same model like for 20 years. You know, what I mean?
Honestly, probably the name that you see on the lights, executives, all that pay and stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, the way that like pharmaceuticals work in this country is pretty squirrely in itself because they used to not be able to advertise to the public, only to doctors at like conventions. But now it's like prescription drugs on TV all the time, and it's ask your doctor about this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they say like the first 7 years that a drug is on the market is really its trial phase. Like they test it, but not it's not the same. And how often do you see advertisement for prescription drugs, and then right after a law advertisement for if you've taken said prescription drugs, if you've taken Yaz or whatever, call us because we'll sue the shit out of them.
Yeah,
it's just like nausea, it's just a little unethical.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing that goes on.
I don't know. The whole pharmaceutical thing, I think like in the beginning we're all just guinea pigs for that. They're all trying to test it, and I can see that, but it's kind of messed up.
I mean, the good thing is our clinical trial programs are actually really, really good. And they're not, because the whole reason that people get sick because they took this drug is there may be a few people that got sick because their genetics weren't covered in the clinical trial. And it's hard to make a drug that won't hurt anybody when there are 6-7 billion people on the earth. It's like it's hard.
And you got to throw in misuse
and exactly
and,
misuse,
synergistic effects with alcohol and other things, and not doing what you're directed to. It's a weird thing though.
Yeah.
But,
one thing I wish that America did more of was making drugs, trying to make them as cheap and as accessible as possible for illnesses that aren't super widespread. So, like as an example, one of my friends has cystic fibrosis, and those drugs are really expensive, and it's hard to find an insurance plan that's going to cover it because there may only be 100,000 people that have that. I don't remember the statistics, but if you have a drug that 100,000 people could take versus 10 million. Which one's cheaper? And it makes the people with these almost like orphan sicknesses where there's so few people or there aren't enough people that they're going to have to pay $50 per pill, and you need 5 pills a day, every day, for the rest of your life.
Which is ridiculous because like that's not what the pill costs to manufacture.
Yeah,
like, it's just not.
Yeah.
I get that research takes a lot of money and things take a lot of money, but like come on, that's
I mean, in the long term,
and it's a necessity. It's like you look at like a luxury item, you're like, oh well, if you want to work hard for a Ferrari, you got to work hard. If not, you can do without it. But it's like when you look at necessities like insulin and food and drugs, it's like you don't have a choice. You need to take this pill. Like you.
And I think America sort of moved away from almost thinking that drugs for diseases that will kill you are a necessity. I feel like I talk to a lot of people that don't think it's a necessity. You have health insurance and you pay your premiums. Then you can get this drug. If you don't, well, you know what? Too bad, because you don't have health insurance.
But insurance is like the craziest thing ever,
It's
because they try to weasel out of every little thing. Like I had recently broke my arm, so we went to the the emergency room, whatever insurance. This is like the copay was like $40-$70. Then they send letters back. They're like, oh, by the way, this is more money that like, and it's just like, I like. If I don't get treatment, my arm won't heal correctly.
Yeah.
Like it could, like if I don't take care of this like the right way now, like it might have like permanent, effects. And it's like these aren't necessities. These aren't luxuries. These are necessities. These aren't luxuries. It's a weird thing. The one thing that I think that they probably should like take care of a little bit is like healthcare. Like because if you get sick, you can't do anything. Like there's nothing you can do. And if this is like a first world country or whatever, and this is like this is one of the things that they should provide for their citizens, because like you can't do it. And it's weird when like you're gonna spend the tax dollars to like buy bullets and bombs to kill people I've never even met, but you won't like take care of your own like and like the arguments against it that like, oh, the quality of healthcare will diminish. It's like I don't really believe that though.
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I would like to think that a lot of people in America would think similarly to how I think. I would be very happy if I made a lot of money and could pay very high taxes to help pay for other people's healthcare.
Yeah.
I would be very happy if I could do that. One, it means I'm making a lot of money. I don't think anybody's against that, but I don't mind helping other people out that are less fortunate than me. I don't pay many taxes because I'm like a college student. I'm an independent.
Yeah.
School's expensive, etc. But I still find time to donate my time and money to charities.
Yeah.
And I see myself really wanting to do that when I get older. I would love to have to pay 10% of my income so that somebody else could have surgery to fix their broken arm, or put on fix their finger that got chopped off in a manufacturing accident, so they could go back to work and provide for their family.
Yeah, that the healthcare thing is like the one thing that like the government probably like, as far as the other like uses for tax money, it seems like this is one of the most important ones. It's just ridiculous. What do you make of the Michio Kaku? He was saying something about I forgot the exact name of it, but it has to do with that like most like 50% of the like smartest people, the PhD holders in America, are actually foreign. They're not actually from America. What do you make of that? That's a pretty interesting statistic.
So when I was
something or whatever, it's like a policy or a program, and it has to do with, it's like 50%.
Yeah. So I my freshman year in school, I took a course called Education and the American Dream, and we talked a lot about education and history in America. And my lecturer, she actually just had gotten her PhD in how United States imperialism affected education in our colonies in the 19th century. And it's really interesting because you see a lot of people arguing that America's education system is flawed. We're based solely on tests, and our test scores aren't improving. We have people in other countries outperforming us in math and science. That's a really big problem, on like the high school level, middle school level, etc. But then you look at our college education system, and our system is second to none. There are really good schools, around the world. We have great schools consistently. We have some of the best research you can do on the planet. You can do research with a company. You can get a job, and you can get a PhD in what you're working on.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities to do it, and people see that around the world. People want to come to America, one, because there are just so many opportunities here, but there are also opportunities to sort of make your own research. I've heard that if you do a PhD in another country, these are some of my international friends at Hopkins. They say, you do a PhD, you have your advisor, they tell you what to do. You hope you're interested in it, otherwise, you're doing research for them, you get a PhD out of it, which is obviously not bad, but you're not necessarily doing what you want to do. Whereas in America, it's sort of, you get an advisor, you get to know them over a semester, you go out to dinner with them, you find out, what are their strengths and weaknesses, they do the same for you, and you sort of build this just this project that's yours.
Well, you
know?
can't
Yeah.
even put like a price on that like intrinsic motivation of
Mhm.
like actually doing something you want to
Yeah.
do. You will apply yourself. The
Mhm.
results you can get from that are way more than just like, oh, I guess I have to do this. Like
Mhm.
when they make you like write those like critical ends essays where it's like, what do you think about this quote? It's like, I think a lot about this quote using these books and literary devices. It's like, now I don't
Yeah.
even want to write this essay. This is
Mhm.
ridiculous. Like I
Yeah.
you know, I could tell you what I genuinely think and the essay would write itself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
And it'd be a good essay.
But it's like, oh, like the idea of a literary device is just like the craziest shit in the world to me. I'm just
Yeah.
like, who decided that? That's crazy.
Well, the writers, 3,000 years ago decided we will invent literary devices, so students in the 21st century will have to write
that
essays
must
about
have been
them.
what it is. Well, I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently there's a story that like Robert Frost, he like went to a university and took a class on like his own poetry and failed it.
Mhm.
And the guy was, the professor was like, you don't even know what he was talking about here. Like he took it like incognito, like as
Yeah.
impersonating somebody else, which is it's a weird thing. But I think that there is that like opportunity. You know what I mean? Like you can, if you want it and you like are determined enough, you can do anything in
Yeah.
America, which is amazing. But I think that like there might just need to be like that. I'm not gonna say like peasant class, but it seems like with like credit card debt and like all these kind of like debts and getting caught and doing jobs that you don't like, it seems like everyone should be able to do it and everyone has the opportunity, but they need people to do
Yeah.
like the
And
the-
that's
the
that's just a
jobs.
reality of just society.
Yeah.
You look back thousands of years, and there's
bourgeoisie.
always the upper, the middle, and the lower class. There's always this sort of unspoken class warfare where you're in your class and it's hard to get out. The American
But
dream.
possible.
Yeah, it's just possible to get out, and it seems like it's getting just harder and harder to get out because
I think so.
if you're unlucky, if you're born into a family in poverty, you will statistically not do
there.
as well at school.
Yeah.
You will statistically be more likely, to be imprisoned. You will statistically be more likely to just do all of these things that as someone in the middle class that I don't even think about.
Yeah, and they do nothing to help those communities. They just kind of let like it's crazy because once like you're a kid, like you have potential, but if you get caught in that like negative feedback loop,
Mhm.
it's like almost impossible to escape.
Yeah.
Like you get to a certain point where you're like kind of set in your ways. Yeah, you can do it, you can escape, you can change your life, but like that like feedback loop just pulls people back into the same old, and they do nothing to like. That's why actually I was at the grocery store and there was a charity for like sports for like inner city schools or like
Mhm.
to get kids. I was like, this is like exactly what we should be donating to.
Mhm.
I gave him some money. So that was it's weird how like people almost blame like it's your fault. Like yeah, you can do it, but like you gotta understand like
There's no motivation
Yeah.
for these kids for them to move on anywhere else where they are.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like I've been reading a book called The Pact about like these three kids who grew up to be doctors, and they talk about like their past life, and they all come back from like the ghetto, I guess you call it, in like New Jersey, and how like some of them went to jail just because of the friends they hang out with, but not because like it was their fault they're blaming. They're just saying that like the poverty that they built, that were lived in, is just so happens that they had to go there. They unfortunately, and then like they all band together when they got to high school and like figured out a way to change their life, and then they created what they call a Three Doctors Foundation to like help other kids, that are less unfortunate, just as they were when they first started. They always talk about this rag to riches kind of way. They start from nothing, and they build themselves up to be something, specifically doctors, dentists, and it's a great like motivational story when you think about it. It's like the point is it's like you could start off in jail and then end up being the guy that saved your jailmate when you were back then. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's crazy how like in America our opportunity is so open and vast that we have like so many choices to be whatever we want. Computer programming, doctors, accountants.
Yeah.
It's really like amazing how far our educational system can be such great if we apply ourselves. Like
Yeah.
you can't just force yourself in there and expect the greatest. No, you gotta apply yourself.
well, there's a difference between like doing something and just going through the motions and phoning it in, and
Yeah.
actually like applying yourself.
Mhm.
I like it does not even matter how smart you are. It only matters how you apply your
Exactly.
intelligence. It
Yeah.
really does. And it's like Do you ever go on the? There's a TED.com website, which is
TED
like,
Talks?
Yeah.
They're inspirational.
I was just about to say they inspire me to like go out and like learn some new shit and do some new shit because like I see like there I think that there's like a if we look at ourselves as like monkeys and primates and there's like the carnal needs and there's like the need for like food and shelter and like to have sex and all that, but there's also like the fulfillment from like inventing something and like doing something that's like I'm really into like machining, which is like I'm not good at math or anything like that, but it's all these like processes where it's like step here, step here, step here, step here, and it's like within a thousandth of an inch, and you need like the kind of like you need like the ability to measure that precise in order to make something that precise. You know what I mean? And when you think about it, like the errors that are introduced by like the smallest amount and how they compound, like 1 degree off, 2 inches away is not really maybe even noticeable, but like as you go further and further out, the run out is all of a sudden like 2 inches, and now the holes don't lie. It's like all that stuff is just like it's how you apply yourself. You know?
Yeah, and I think that one thing that our school system lacks is really helping students to find out who they are and what they're good at. What they like to do. Because you have some opportunities to do machining stuff at like at Hicksville High School.
Barely though.
But not that much. I had some opportunities to do computer science. Not that much. I had some opportunities to do higher level math. Again, not that much. And I wish there was just. It's hard, but I wish there was just some way where you could just have this class where you sort of like find what you love to do.
We would be way stronger because of it as like a society. They had like, oh, you can make like a pizza paddle or whatever. It's like I don't want to make that. Like
but some people will,
if you want to, but it's like no, the whole class we're all making this. Like I went to like art class, we're all drawing flowers. It's like, but I want to draw a portrait. Yeah. No, flowers. We're all like. I don't even want like now. I'm not going to try as much, and it's just it's ridiculous. There's no like. There should be like the freedom to pursue your own. I mean, there is like outside of school, but it would be better if there was more. And like the way that like the college system works, they're like, oh, you need humanities credits, and if you're gonna do this, you're gonna need to take English, this and this, and it's like this has nothing to do with what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm learning like a major or a field, but it's not so much like my job. Like they should be able to like, what job do you want? These are the steps, like what you need, and everything else is just like almost a distraction.
Yeah, and it's hard because how early do you want to find out what your job is? If you would ask me 9th grade, it's different than my answer in 5th grade. It's different than my answer now, and it's just
for sure.
It's like a learning experience. It's growing up. What do I want to do? What skills do I have? And it's hard.
But you don't even have to do one thing if you want to pursue like many different things. That's totally up to you. You know. Yeah, you're kind of like you won't be able to go as deep in each one. But if you want to do like something for 20 years and you decide, oh, this isn't fulfilling enough, and you want to switch to something else, it's never too late. And like there's not like, oh, you can do 3 things but not 4. You know what I mean? Like it's not like there's a limit. Yeah. If there's really no limit to your own potential, man, and that's why those TED Talks are amazing. Because I'm so motivated to go out and like pursue my passions. It's weird because I used to like Google TED or whatever and it would pop right up, and now I Google TED and it's that Seth MacFarlane movie, which is not. It's not that it's bad, but it's like this should really be the first result. Like let's not pretend here. Yeah, I love those TED Talks, man. That the whole philosophy behind like sharing that knowledge, and some of them are just so like. I watch all of the ones on like space colonization and whatnot because that's fascinating, man. Yeah. How long do you think before like the average person be able to go into space?
A while. So I mean, a lot of people have been saying NASA's going down, its budget's been cut, it's not doing space. That is so false.
We're seeing the commercialization of space
we're seeing the commercialization of space travel, but then people, like, for example, people look at MSL, the, Curiosity just landed, August 5th. Or 6th for Eastern time, I guess. And, it went over budget. It took 3 years longer to make than it was expected. Yeah. This is so terrible.
It's all bottom line.
Did you hear the statistic about how much it costs every single American?
How much?
$6.
That is
We
so,
went to Mars
so worth it.
for
That is
$6
so
a person, and it really made me think. You know, if you want to get the best return on your investment, you have this group of thousands of engineers who getting into space, they're going to solve tens of thousands of problems and just create all of these new technologies. You know, so many electronics that we have today were originally designed or thought up by NASA to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm. The video cameras that they had in the 60s before they went to the moon, they were gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
They made one like the small, like it was so small that they
Mm-hmm.
made it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Compared to what like the black and white TV was doing in like
Mm-hmm.
the 60s, it's just like.
And it worked in space.
And it did. It worked in a vacuum, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's it's so crazy that like they were making fun of Newt Gingrich or whatever during the primaries, and I would never vote for him, but he was just like, we need a base on the moon, and everyone's just like, that's ridiculous.
Well,
even Ron Paul's like, that's ridiculous, but I'm like, I think that's a legitimate thing. That's like, we're extending like mankind's influence.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're
it's presidents used to have this this vision of space,
mm-hmm.
and I think as a country we sort of lost it. The Cold War ended, and well, what do we need space for? We went to the moon, what do we need this for? And it's just, I feel like people aren't excited by it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, interning for NASA, it was great. These engineers that I saw on a daily basis, that I saw during the webcasts that I watched every day, every single minute of it, that I follow on Twitter, they're rock stars. These are my heroes. These people that are able to basically hit a hole-in-one on a planet moving millions of miles an hour, so accurate that after 250 million miles, they're off by less than half a kilometer.
And for what, like 7 minutes at a time, the radio contact is out. Like that's
and
ridiculous.
They had so many safeguards on their software that if their landing software crashed, they had a special version of the software that they could boot up so quickly that would still land it.
How ridiculous was that whole sky crane delivery? Like they used to use airbags and whatnot, and it's just like no, it's gonna just the right amount of impulse to counter out, and it just drops it perfectly.
Awesome. I got the opportunity to demo the Mars Lander game for the Xbox 360 Connect at the MSL landing party. So I'm like helping 5 or 6 year olds do it, and I'm just saying this is hard. When the craft is entering, the atmosphere, it has to brake, use the atmosphere to slow down. But it's moving. They're flying that thing like an airplane.
Yeah.
And then the parachute goes out. The parachute weighs 100 pounds. It had to withstand 65,000 pounds of force. It's not hypersonic. It's a supersonic parachute. The physics that apply to it are different than normal parachutes.
Yeah.
You have a bow shock. You have a sonic boom that the Concorde made. Mm-hmm. Along the front of this thing. Then you have this sky crane that's taking pictures, it's using radar, and it's saying, where do I want to land?
That's amazing.
How am I going to do this? And it's just, it's
cool.
incredible.
Yeah, and all without radio contact or anything.
All by
that.
itself.
Oh god, that makes me excited. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a remote control car on Mars.
I watched the 7 minutes of terror video every day at work because it inspired me.
Yeah. God, that's amazing.
One of the craziest things is the processors they used on it, they're measured in megahertz.
Is that a lot? That's a lot.
Your computer has gigahertz.
Yeah, as I say, is that less than? Is megahertz is less or more?
The computer on this thing is significantly stronger than the computer that handled landing.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Why did they use more powerful computers? They didn't need it.
The problem is being able to withstand the radiation in space and all the different temperatures. It's really expensive to do that, and it's very expensive to do that on really powerful modern processors.
What is the problem with does the radiation affect the
So here's an example.
Circuits.
If I put my iPhone in an oven, set it to 900 degrees, can I talk with it?
I would imagine no.
Probably not. If I give this enough radiation, the equivalent radiation of a nuclear bomb, and I try to talk on it, is it going to work? Because that's what the spacecraft has to do.
I would imagine no.
And then this thing is traveling at 13,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Well, it is, but is it not how fast is it really decelerating? A lot.
Oh, is what decelerating?
As it's landing. Is it putting a lot of it's not that it's going fast that's bad, right? It's the acceleration and deceleration that causes it to like
It's
have
just
like
all the different
G-forces.
environmental factors. The heat, the
The
pressure,
cold.
the G forces. I mean, because that computer that was used during flight, on its way to Mars.
Have you seen they do those the weather balloons that they put like an iPhone on and it
Mhm.
goes like to the edge of the atmosphere and then pops and then you get like you can see the curvature of the earth and
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a simple like elegant solution to like a really like when you think about it a complex problem. You're
Yeah.
like it's just gonna keep going up and up and up and up and up until it pops. Like
Mhm.
it's like I didn't realize it was that simple
Yeah. The reason that going into space costs so much is
to fight the Earth's gravity.
fighting the Earth's gravity, but just like to build a technology to do it, you have to make this stuff so reliable. When you talk about computer, some of your gates will stop working. Some of your AND gates, sorry, they don't work. Does your computer care? No.
Mhm.
It figures it out. If any one of those things broke on a spacecraft, the spacecraft tips over and explodes. If you do anything slightly wrong, like there was a spacecraft where they tried to convert a 64-bit floating point number into a 16-bit integer. Basically convert like 24.1 into like a really small number. It overflowed the memory on the chip that it was using. Boom.
It exploded.
One little mistake, and I imagine tens of people looked at this code to find if anything bad could theoretically happen. One little mistake is enough to end the mission. There's this lecture by this astronaut, I forgot his name. He explains why going to Mars is so hard.
Wow.
And he showed, he showed like a test as an example. The test had a 99% with an F on it, saying, as NASA, we can't perform at simply a 99% competence level.
Wow.
We can't perform at 99.9%. You can't even perform at 11 nines, like what Amazon storage does. Because if there's one single mistake, it can end the entire mission.
yeah.
With a far enough
Yeah.
distance
Yeah.
becomes like just enough error to like become catastrophic.
It's very humbling knowing that there are people in this country that can perform at that level.
of precision.
Wow. Their entire lives. You know the Voyager spacecraft?
No, which is that?
The Voyager spacecraft was launched 35 years ago. It's at the edge of our solar system. It still works.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
It's so far away, all it can send is basically a heartbeat. Beep, I'm alive. But this thing is engineered
And-
so well that it still works. It can still point its antenna accurately enough, know exactly where Earth is to send that one bit.
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
They were putting up that SpaceX, not the rendezvous flight, but the flight before that.
Mhm.
They had to adjust the nozzle. They're like it's like a magnesium like nozzle with a taper that like starts at like 10 microns and like
Mhm.
slowly goes, so they shave the tiniest amount off, and I'm just like, oh my god. And they're
Mhm.
like, yeah, if we didn't do that, during like whatever wet dress rehearsal, they realized there might be a problem.
Yep.
And they're like the precision that they're doing is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
What I think is one of the coolest things about the Curiosity is they don't even use solar panels anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, the dust, the dust is just too much, and it's nuclear powered,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah,
And that
you know
laser-
NASA's been using it before.
Yeah, the first couple landers had that, right?
So
The ones that they didn't move around that much, but they had like.
I'm not sure about specifically about the other Mars landers, but I know, for example, Voyager uses an RTG, and that's a
It's
radio electric thermal generator. So it's not like a nuclear. It's not like a nuclear power plant. Basically, they have this radioactive material, and it gives off heat.
Mhm.
So they use that heat to keep the warmer parts warm, but they also use that heat to generate electricity, about 100 watts. And so it's not like a nuclear bomb in space. It's not even
No,
a nuclear bomb in
definitely
space.
not,
It's
definitely not.
nuclear material generating heat.
just like decaying and.
Yeah, it's decaying.
Yeah.
And
That's-
it's great because this thing can be powered for a very long time.
Yes.
And it's really useful. What NASA typically does is they'll have this nominal mission for Curiosity. It's 1 Mars year, which is 2 Earth years. And, they're going to apply for more science. Because come 2 years, they're going to say, you know what, we still have so much more to do. This spacecraft still works.
Yeah,
We're going to use it.
Spirit and Opportunity last way longer than they thought it was supposed to.
More than Opportunity is at more than 3,000 sols. The sol is just the Martian day.
Mhm.
So more than 3,000 when it was designed for 90.
Wow,
Damn.
that's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, think about how
That's-
much hardware do we have. Imagine if your car said, yeah, I'm going to work for 90 days, and it worked for 3,000.
Well, my car barely works as it is, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I have
Yeah.
like a weird transmission that if I accelerate too hard, it goes into neutral. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, if you baby it, it's fine. So I know exactly, and it's like, well, the idea of like an automatic transmission is crazy to me in general. It's like I get like you have to like change gear ratios for like different like bottom end, low end kind of torque and higher end torque to like adjust the acceleration, but the idea that it does it itself with like fluid compressing and different clutches. And
What
I'm
about a
just like,
CVT?
what's that?
That's the constant variable transmission. It's constantly changing the gear ratio.
That's amazing. How does it do that?
I'm not exactly sure about the science. I was just like looking it up. Like the Honda CRZ uses it, but basically it'll optimize for fuel economy.
Yeah.
It'll constantly change the gear ratios.
Yeah.
It doesn't shift. It
They-
just changes it.
Yeah, they do. They have cars that do like the computer does what 200 calculations a second now. Between like the like the richness of the fuel mixture, and it's trying to like take the efficiency right. The actual your internal combustion engine is only like 19% efficient for the amount of like chemical energy you put in the form of gasoline to the amount of like power it can generate. That's terribly inefficient. That's crazy. So there's a lot. They say there's a lot of room for improvement there, but
So for engines, not really. There's mathematically proven to be one most efficient engine. I believe it's called the Carnot engine. I'm not exactly sure if that.
Are there a lot of like moving parts, or is it
It's
really
so it's the
simple?
least number of moving parts. It's the most simple engine you can
I can
use.
imagine.
Because basically, I mean, an engine is a refrigerator running in reverse, basically.
Yeah.
Generating heat to move parts.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
They're all these
combustion of
different.
gasoline
Yeah.
drives a piston, which
Yeah.
turns a crankshaft.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
you
So
know.
I'm pretty sure the Carnot engine is the most efficient, and it's something like 33%. Like you just can't get better.
Well, that's crazy. There's a lot of like turbines that are really efficient because they're very simple.
Yeah.
But they have turbines that like adjust the angle of the blades at
Mhm.
different speeds, which is just like the craziest shit ever.
One of the most efficient things is the bicycle, up to 98% efficient for the energy that you put in.
Wow, I totally believe that. I totally believe that.
And the energy you lose is because the chain is on a slight angle between the first two gears.
Yeah, wow. There's
Wow.
like and when you look at a bicycle, like the amount of precision there is not a lot at all.
Exactly.
As long as like you know what I mean. Like you could slowly be eroding the sprocket by having the chain slightly off, so it wears on one side very slowly, and then over. You know what I mean? The precision that you need for a bicycle is almost like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
You're working at like what I would call they call like blacksmith kind of work. You know what I mean? Like to shape metal in the general shape, and then
Yeah.
machining work is like within a thousandth of an inch within. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's amazing because they say that Eli Whitney invented the milling machine, or was one of the inventors in like the 30s or whatever. It's just the amount of like progress that we have that like the average person does not understand is amazing, man.
Well, somebody, I forget his name, which is unfortunate because this is actually really cool, but this guy figured out how he would go about transmitting digital data via telephone lines in the 30s.
What?
Wow.
In the 30s.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Basically like a form of internet, and he's like thinking it up, like how to go about it, and it's basically bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send the bits.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla invented the first like RC boat in the 1800s. Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they used to like the kind of like amplifiers that they would use back then to send like telegraph signals. Like there were no like transistor amplifiers. There were no vacuum tubes. They had like they're like two different types of materials or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what they're called. I forgot exactly what I'm talking about, but they were like. You gotta leave?
Yeah, soon.
All right, we could wrap this up.
Okay, yeah.
I appreciate you like talking with us, though, bro.
Yeah,
This was great.
Yeah, no,
I enjoyed
man.
this.
No, man. We don't get to talk to people who know like you know a lot about some shit, man. It's interesting.
I'm
I feel
happy
like
I got the opportunity.
my
to.
life isn't. I feel like my life is slightly more enriched by having this conversation.
Yeah,
and,
enlightenment, David Widen's
man.
like knowledge.
My the one thing I truly want to do, like if I didn't have to do anything else,
Mhm.
is it's teaching, and people deserve to know as much as they can. I view it as a waste of my day if I don't learn something new.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
people deserve to just
Yeah.
learn something new every day, whatever it is.
Wow.
That's definitely a good way of teaching life. Good way of living.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's just you got to do the things that make you fulfilled, no matter what. No matter what anybody says, no matter if it's not cool. I used to like kind of think that like if you acted too smart around certain people, they might think less of you. But then it's like, I don't care anymore. You know, like why would I even like just keep going? Just keep pushing and just keep going.
Never quit.
All right. Well, this was fun, man.
This is great.
This is awesome.